on pumping up. So on technical basis, that is one level. Secondly, that is the level where we also right now have Coinbase and
Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome to the Trading Pit today. I am your hot off the bench host for today, Ben Lilly. I'll be filling in for the always eloquent man of the mic, Mr. Marconi White. I hope he's listening in today with a beautiful, healthy baby in his arms. So let's make sure we make him proud. All right, so today we have the brain trust of the J Labs digital quant team with us. First off, the man who measures his work in nanomilliseconds, that's nanoseconds and milliseconds, excuse me there, and inefficiency, when he sees it, he is bound to make it efficient. So this is Amit. Welcome.
Thank you.
And the second half of the trust here is the man with me at the helm of J Labs Digital, the mad scientist of our very own JAI trade software, Benjamin. Gentlemen, pleasure to be in the studio with you all today, chatting about markets. Tell me, Benjamin, as the slow summer continues this week, what new item on your timeline caught your eye? Second half of
Well, the MasterCard with MetaMask, that's certainly nice. It's definitely something very good. Self-custodial wallet, getting a card that you can tap and pay in places, that's a good to have. So
I sense
good for
some
adoption.
skepticism there.
Well, Revolut has been done there for a while, you know. So crypto and crypto-based cards, and there's been Wirex, a lot of other products. So we'll have to see how far this plays out, or will they just make it for the Europeans, just like every other product is doing? So that's the skepticism. Someone show some love for APAC, you know.
I interpret it as a good step forward for self-custody, but maybe a step back on KYC encroaching on that self-custody.
Yeah, that's the sad part. So if there is I mean, it's a master stroke. If you know, if people are able to put a name behind the wallet address, well, that's not going to be good. And none of these entities have been well known for keeping their data safe. We've seen so much happen with Ledger. So one data leak, and you know which wallet address is owned by who.
Oh, that's a good point. One quick leak and everything is out in the open for the public, and all of a sudden the $5 wrench attack comes in hot on the headlines. We
that
really
might be
don't
the
want
plan.
that.
That might be the plan all the way.
The truth is coming out. Amit, I'm gonna turn this over to you. Recently, Hedgehog from Fisher 8 came out publicly and said he has been 90% short of late and apparently has a short only mandate for 2024. Do you think he flips? And if so, when?
Flip happens at 65. When 65 is turned over, in my view, everybody will flip.
Everybody, including yourself?
Yeah, I'm already flipped in a way. I'm looking for longs.
Nice. All right. And apparently Hedgehog is getting ready to duel it out with Nick Carter in the ring. So I got to ask, who wins?
Nick Carter. Let's see.
He's been training.
Yeah.
It seems like he's just been waiting for somebody to get in the ring with him just so he can show his stuff.
Yeah, would be interesting.
Good for him. He had a great take of just trying new stuff and just trying to slow down the timeline of life. That was
But I don't think he will win because he's been shotting. He's been a bear. The game has been comfortable for him, so probably too complacent,
so.
and is
So are you
going to go
saying
in overconfident.
the Bears are weak?
No, I'm saying the Bears are probably overcomplacent by now. That when they go in for such a competition, such a fight, they go in too overconfident
Mm.
without their stop losses and profit and get ass kicked.
So it's the hubris downfall.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shifting gears a little bit, Benjamin. Since the start of July, DXY index and Bitcoin have been gaining in correlation. They seemingly are starting to move in tandem. I got to ask, is this going to stop soon?
Um, that's a hard to say how when it will stop, but I do think it will stop playing out at some point, and the inverse correlation will be back. I think the correlation coefficients basically indicate it's much more close correlated for BTC and Russell index, and let's say with most of the other indices. Like if you just go based on data, you can also say it is right now correlated very well with USD JPY. You can say with DXY. You can say with a lot of indices, like we discussed before in last week's market talk as well. But I think it's all very short term because of all the macro fears that's going on, and eventually it's going to be it's always a DXY BTC inverse correlation, and BTC is pretty much behaving like penny stocks correlation right now for the past 10-15 days at least. And we have to wait and see when that stops playing out and BTC detaches from itself. That will be very good.
Okay, well, let's break into that a little bit more later. But first off, I got to ask, anybody listening likely knows that I write a blog called Espresso, where I attempt my best to put a little bit of insight, at least I should say flavor of roast of insight, maybe. But I got to ask Amit, tea or coffee?
Coffee all the time.
Coffee or espresso?
Oh, espresso even better.
No, nice. Dark roast or light roast?
Super dark.
Super dark. Milk or straight black?
Straight black.
Man, this man just does not joke around here. Just straight up caffeine to the veins. Benjamin, I got to ask, since you're over in Dubai, how's the gold foil espresso over there?
Hey, it was horrible. It was the worst decision of my life to try out a gold floated cappuccino.
So,
Now that's
do you
90
mix in
dirhams
the
down the
gold?
drain.
Do you mix the gold foil into the espresso? How does that work?
They put a layer of, so it's a cappuccino, it's not an espresso, but on the cappuccino it's a layer of that gold foil that they basically put on top and served warm, quite warm actually, and you can just take your spoon and poke into it and have it. I don't know. I think I was just feeling FOMO someday and I had it. It's the worst decision of my life.
I
I
got
really
I,
regretted spending 90 dirhams that day on a shitty cappuccino. I'll never ever do that.
This must have
I,
been
I got a
March when the
question.
market was
I got
topping out and everybody was feeling good. The Goldschlager
I
coffee.
got a question. I got a question, Benjamin. What happens to the gold? How does it?
Well, I don't think I was vigilant on what happened in the morning the next day, so I'm not
Does it come out
sure.
as a nugget?
I have no idea. But
Sorry.
yeah.
Did you feel rich when the gold was within you?
Well, when I ordered, I did feel rich, but when I was paying the bill, I could feel the soul basically getting out of me. So I
You
did
felt
not
lighter,
feel rich at that point.
essentially, but not for the right
Yeah,
reason.
I was lighter. 90 dirhams out of the wallet, so I was lighter.
Too good, too good. All right, well, let's get into some market talk. That's why we're here today. Today we're gonna break down. Looks like Bitcoin, Ethereum, which seems like Ethereum is not gonna be much of a discussion here. Solana, and then a DeFi token based upon some of the feedback I saw on my timeline when I asked the question, what do you guys want to hear about today? So to start off, for the market breakdown talk, Bitcoin is down over 3% over the last 3 days, or excuse me, 5 days, while the NASDAQ is up 3.5%. And the US dollar, as of this morning, is starting to retrace to the upside as measured by the DXY index. So we have Bitcoin showing softness, we have equity showing strength, and then now you have the DXY starting to move to the upside. So, with that backdrop, Benjamin, I'll start with you. What's your general take on the market? And if you want, we can start with how the DXY is moving in tandem with Bitcoin of late. I believe you said that's going to be temporary. Can you expand a little bit on what you mean by temporary and what should we expect when that correlation starts to break? And if you don't mind, also just getting into why do you think the two are moving so closely together over the last month? Seems like silence is the answer here. So if that's the case, either we lost him or he's coming back. So Amit, I'm going to probably pivot that over to you. Are you with us, Amit?
Yep.
All right. So
Can you hear?
same question for you, if you don't mind. You got the DXY moving in tandem with Bitcoin. Why is that the case over the last month? And then what do you think it takes for that correlation to break?
I think for the time being, it will be correlated because Bitcoin has already been beaten down a lot from the last high, and I see this as an opportunity that has been taken with the backfills because I go from the order flow perspective and I see loads of bids coming in. There are loads of resting bids that are not moving away, which is a good sign in the long term, as in people are willing to fill their bags. And in a short term, I think it will move. It will be correlated to DXY uh, on the upside. And there is, and to come on the contrary side, there is a lot of liquidity sitting above 65K that has to be tapped into before anything happens. So again, as I always say, I move in the ranges. So from me, I'll be looking for a long hair from here to 65. When we reach that level, then it'll be a decision point what happens next.
So, in your view of the market, the two are not really correlated. Bitcoin just remains range bound while DXY is kind of doing its thing from the yen carry trade as that's
Yes,
gone down over the last week or so.
yeah, that is correct.
Gotcha. And so would you look at the DXY as of this morning and given how the CPI was lately, which it looks like it was more favorable, and those less jobless claims than expected as of this morning, do you see that kind of being shown in DXY? And also, what does this mean for Bitcoin? What does this mean for crypto? Why are we not seeing any movement this morning?
I think we are lagging a bit because I think we are looking at how the market is behaving, and then there will be a follow-up kind of a decision making on the crypto side. What happens to the rest of the market? Early doors. I mean, it is looking all positive. So the data from the CPI print specifically, I was very hopeful that we'll see a reaction. There was an initial reaction, but that all got retraced. That was a bit of a kind of a surprise. But jobless data coming in positive, it's a good sign in the right direction, I think.
Benjamin, are you back with us?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, I got to ask, similar question that I was given a Mitt. I mean, CPI looked pretty favorable. Jobless claims look favorable. It hints at, almost the global economy at large to some extent. I don't mean to be overly U.S. centric point of view here, but the economy is showing some resilience. What does this mean for Bitcoin and crypto moving forward? Should we expect this to show itself in a positive, negative manner? And really, what should we be paying attention to when it comes to these macro readings moving forward?
So it's definitely this week. We had three data points come in: inflation, in PPI, and also today we had the jobless claims data. All of them were quite favorable towards saying that this is probably not a recessionary market. Inflation is definitely cooling down. It's at a pace that the Fed basically promised to bring it down to. That's what, at least on the macro side, TradeFi is basically observing that it is favorable. Fed's words have worked out so far, is what they think. Where when it comes to Bitcoin side, I think it is just seasonality on one side, and the other side, it's just we still have some of those tailwinds. Let's say whether it is the Mount Cox um, volume that came into the market. There's still some distribution going on about that, and we have the US government moved 10,000 Bitcoin to Coinbase institutional custody last night. And there are some hush and puff here and there, some purchases, some sales going on. So I think there's a lot of rebalancing here. There's potentially some big whales buying also over here, because we saw a huge Coinbase premium for the past 1 week, to be honest, which is very good. You don't get that type of a Coinbase premium if we didn't have some big player buying a lot of BTC, that's for sure. So overall, it is more of a indecision and the high correlation with the traditional finance markets. We're not seeing Bitcoin do a beta run to TradeFi market because it's also seasonality. So, like I've been saying since May and June, I've been consistent that I would not expect anything great to happen until Q3 is done. I did not certainly expect we'll drop all the way down to 50K, of course, but I still don't think we will go beyond 70Ks in the short term. It's all going to set based on what the Fed rate cuts happen in September, if they will cut, how far they will cut, what is the tone that comes in. I think the market is highly reliant on that at the moment.
So you were saying that you were expecting sort of the summer months to be rather slow, and we do see that, but to an extent,
Yeah.
you didn't expect the pullback and sort of, I guess, the boredom, if you will, to be this extreme and this prolonged. And now that you see it, what's kind of your take as why it is that sort of uh, kind of boredom in general? Is it the ETF and the flows? Were we too overextended in March? Are we just not seeing new retail? What do you kind of chalk this up for being?
I mean, everything actually. So we had a lot of retail games happen in the Solana side that has slowed down a lot after Pump.Fund came in and ruined the party. So on one side, retail is bored. Retail doesn't know what to do either. I mean the Solana retail, because that's all the retail that's left. And we expected some huge moves on DeFi side after a few of the macro side news and SEC basically quitting on a lot of those cases. But that has not really monetized yet either. Now, Aave, CRV, all those tokens are trying to do a fee switch model. So there is a little bit of interest and buying spree over there, but we need to see a good follow up. We haven't seen high gas fees on ETH for a while. On Bitcoin, basically, if you think about it, we are still in a range. We are still in a channel. We're just ranging over here, slowly consolidating, between a very thickening range zones. So nothing much. It's just lack of anything. So after the few shocks that we had with the JPY and the German sales and so on, there's literally nothing much. Uh, so the market is basically waiting for a significant push, a significant news. And at a point, a few weeks back, it was highly correlated with Trump, and the potential of Trump winning was basically seen as highly crypto friendly move. So given that there have been a change of all predictions on Harris and Trump situation, I think the market is also trying to price that in to a certain extent. The market
So
is
do you
also a little
mark up
scared.
maybe this hesitation that we see in the market? Would you kind of categorize it as hesitation, which is sort of Kamala Harris starting to look more
Yeah.
favorable in the polls compared to Trump? Or would you attribute this a little bit more to the March blow off and sort of the seasonality effect?
No, it's the hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
Seasonality is just adding more fuel. If it was still Trump leading the polls and things were bullish, we would have probably seen flows come in, irrespective of the seasonality. We did see some flows come in like that early in June or July. So it wasn't that bad after all, unlike what I expected. I really thought we'll go on a very boring sideways, but we've been at least in a bit of an interesting sideways, I would say, in the same
Mm-hmm.
ranging pattern. But it's more about all these macro uncertainty. uh, I do know for sure that there's a lot of cash, and a lot of cash is still sitting on sidelines or just already allocated and just don't know what more to do. So it's like there's no interesting altcoin to invest on. There's no interesting meme that is gaining traction. There's no interesting narrative otherwise gaining traction, whether it is on AI side, in TradeFi side, or whether it is on hardcore crypto as well. So there's just literal boredom everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing.
I can almost feel that and sense that because boredom is starting to creep into me as well. I'm not gonna lie. When I go down the timeline, I feel like I don't see anything new of late, but is what it is. When the market starts to heat up again, it's almost like all of the things that have been dormant start to come to life. But on that note where you mentioned hesitation, I'm curious, Amit, bring you here as we start to break down what's going on with Bitcoin. It's been moving sideways for the most parts after that sell-off we saw a week and a half ago. Do you see that hesitation right now, Amit, on the order books? Where are the bids been sitting? What's the activity been happening with in terms of the bids over the last week? Can you expand on that? Maybe pull up a chart and so we can dive into it.
Yeah, okay. So there is, I concur with Benjamin when it says there is a bit of a hesitation in the market compared to when we saw there was an assassination attempt, because that itself was a clear indication of what the market think at that point of time. If Trump comes in, what's going to happen to the market? So based on that, there was some order flow, but the moment um, Kamala started to get traction in the polls, you can see there is a bit of a hesitation saying we don't know what the policy points would be going forward. So that is getting reflected in the order books as well. So initially, when we started tracking, when that happened, when that incident happened, the order books were really thick. And then when the market started to come in forcefully into those bids, they just disappeared. Now, slowly, I mean, on the sidelines, I can see those orders on the bids getting thicker, or at least they are not moving when the price is coming into them. So, which is a positive sign. And at the moment, I mean, currently looking at it, it's basically bids around 57K that are sitting there. That is in between area between 54K, because everybody expects it to drop to 54K, and we might not get that. So 57K is I'm trying to basically get in and ride it all the way to 65.
What would you be looking for? You mentioned this 57K level. If the price starts to eat into those bids, what are you looking for on the chart in terms of what heightened risk would look like? What sort of order flow would you start to see? What would your warning signs be that the market is just not ready to go ahead and move to the upside? The bids are starting to climb back down. What is going on in your mind when you're watching those trades come in?
So when the price starts to trend towards those bids, the first sign is basically, are they moving up or down? If they are not moving, then that's the first indication, like there is no hesitation. People wants to buy at that point. That's the first point. Second point being is, if the bids are or the market sales are getting aggressive and there is no new bids coming in and they're getting thicker in size, that means it's going to break. And that is specifically coming from the spot side. If the spot started to sell heavily into those bids, then it's going to break. Because see, these levels are visible to everybody. It's not like something it's not available. So once you can see and bids are not kind of pushed back, and the market is selling aggressive into that and they get replenished, that's a very clear indication of what is going to happen next. Because at some point, market sales are going to stop. And that's where people step in. And that becomes very clear on the order flow. When you start looking at the market profile side of things, it becomes clear at what point they are selling in. So if it, yeah.
So
So
you
that's what I
mentioned
would look at.
aggressiveness, and I think we measure this with cumulative volume delta. We tend to use CVD for short. And
Mhm.
for a lot of the work that we do in building metrics, is there a certain demographic or bucket or order size that you would be looking at where if it starts to aggressively within the spot market start to sell, that would show up in those readings in terms of
Yeah.
is it smaller sized orders? Is it medium? Is it larger?
And that is a very valid point because there are ranges here within the CVD as well, within the order sizes as well. Because we know there are market makers operating and they have a standard size between 10 and 40K is the order sizes that you see from the market makers coming in. So what generally I do is I track anything above 100K. So those are the big order sizes that I see because that's not market makers range. That is outside retail as well.
Hmm.
And if those orders are coming in on the spot side and they're coming in aggressive, that means something is about to change.
Is that more of capitulation, or would that
Yeah,
be more of the early signs of sort of a larger sell-off? Seeing
that
those
would be the early
orders
sign.
in that larger size, which you mentioned is not a market maker, it's more of a retail that has big bags.
So that's basically you. If you see those kind of orders coming into the bids, that then you know the support is not going to hold.
Mm, okay. And then if you were to see that price kind of slow down, start to form the bottom, you want to see the aggressive side be on the bid and those bids start to kind of catch up. Am I
Exactly,
summarizing that correctly?
which is correct.
Okay. Benjamin, I'm gonna kick it over to you here. You know, what price level are you watching? I know you mentioned before the 200-day moving average. You've had your eyes set on that. As soon as we broke down, that was a big warning sign for you. You kind of said, you know what, just turn the monitor off, forget it, come back once we're back above it. Are you still looking at the 200-day moving average? And as far as that moving average, what is it that you're looking to see when price starts to come by back towards it, if it does?
Yeah, 200-day moving average, I'm still looking at as a really critical spot, whether it is on 4 hours or whether it is on daily. I think we really definitely need to flip that in order to secure the whole bull run situation, if there is anything left for that matter. But I want to add something to what Ahmed said with respect to the order flow sizes and so on. And what I typically look for is if in Panda, for instance, we can see something called as a range of 1 million to 10 million. And I look at it on a hourly period and see how many trades basically happen in the zone. And typically, what I find is that when you are Bitcoin and spot whales basically come in and take up some fat to Binance. So, trying to get out of a position and just take up hedge positions. So those are a bit of de-risking situations I find. So
So if so you were breaking up a little bit there,
10
Benjamin.
million.
Sorry if I'm talking over you while you're kind of coming in and out here, but if I'm going to try to summarize what I heard, and it was basically watching certain larger orders come in as a de-risking type of order into the in general. So if price starts to come back, gain some strength, you're watching to see if there's de-risking taking place in the market, and if that's the case, then any break out to the upside is going to be muted.
Yeah, for example, a couple of days back, we had this huge spike over here on 1 to 10 million level. And you can see that we were spiking right into 61K, and then we had a fake out, and then we dropped all the way down to 57K. So I've seen a lot of times, not every time, I would say, because if it was every time, then it is very easy, right? Like everybody would be following that. This green spike you see, which is a 1 to 10 million size on Binance spot, someone opened a huge spot buy on a taker flow, right? So when such a huge order comes in and fills all the way into a resistance, my thesis is that this particular trader is taking up a hedge position on futures, and probably already scaled in. So he's just helping to push the market a little bit into that resistance level, where he knows that nobody else is going to follow up. So you can see that there was no other whale orders who followed up, and you
Hmm.
saw what happened to the price. It fell all the way from
Hmm.
61K all the way to 57,640. You could see the same thing happen over here on 29th of July, when this basically spiked all the way to 69K, 70K, and then there was simply no follow up on any other whales, and then price just dropped. I'm not saying it is like it is a given that we will always see that happen, because there are other whales as well. So, for example, you can see the same thing happen over here, but the price just continued to rise up. So, it's not every instance, but when you see such large purchases on Binance Spot, and when you have resistance sell walls all the way here, if you go back on trading light, you can see there were good sell walls over here. Uh, then it is basically a cautionary signal that the whales are just pushing up the price to fill in their hedges somewhere. It could
Are
be
you
on
watching open
Binance
interest?
futures, it could be on coin call, we don't know where.
Are you watching open interest as
Open
that's
interest will
playing out?
probably not tell you the. No,
So,
I'm using the count alone at the moment to
mhm.
show, but
So, as you're saying
the
this,
hedge could be anywhere is my point. Like it
you got
doesn't need
sell
to be
walls set up.
necessarily in
Oops, sorry, you keep cutting in
open
and out,
interest.
but I'm trying to summarize a little bit just to kind of wrap up Bitcoin here. But if you have your sell walls that you're saying at near and at resistance, and then you see in the spot market, you sort of see this attempt through a large purchase within this larger demographic of say $1 million to $10 million in order size, hit right up into that resistance. That to you could indicate a de-risking that's taking place where the individual or trader or desk has that set up on the future side already to go ahead and maybe finish opening up those orders. Did I summarize that future side correctly?
Yeah, yeah. So because we can also see that in OI, if you look at it, you can see it correlating quite well. You see this green spike, and you also see this open interest spike, and then you can see it happen again over here. You see the green spike when nearly more than two whale
Hmm.
sized order happen, an open interest spike as well. You can, so it's not always one to one, is my point. It's not always one to one, but it is something to keep an eye on. And using Panda Intel, we can anyway have those signals appear when it happens. And you can use those situations as a way to either tell yourself that there is something going on, some shenanigans going on. There's someone either de-risking or just pushing up the price to screw someone else.
So,
So there's some very good indications which basically can caution you into whether it is a fake push or not.
so we've kind of seen over the last week a bit of shenanigans playing out. We're a bit range bound here. We're seeing things kind of just bounce around in general. Um, and the work that you've done in creating JAI, which is the autonomous execution software that we have at JLabs Digital, what are you seeing with that system of late? Is it showing any sort of bias of late in terms of direct price direction? And if not, what is it doing right now to attempt to be active?
Sorry, I lost you. I'm so sorry I lost you.
I was just wondering, over the last week, what have you been seeing from JAI in terms of the trades that it's been taking? And what does that tell you?
Well, it's actually been flipping together with the market, to be honest. During the dips, it's been taking some long positions. It's been trying to play these situations where it is correcting, because we get on a tight range and there is long signals popping up and it's basically going long, but the price isn't moving enough. And then we have a lot of spread imbalance situations on the local time frames in tick levels. So those basically given some long opportunities. But then the biggest issue is that there isn't enough follow-up that comes from the market.
Mm-hmm.
So when there is lack of follow-up, then basically it cuts down the position and goes flat. So I think right now it is having a long push in around 58,300 or so, I think. I'm not sure. Or 400 probably, but it is just holding up. And hopefully the rest of the position gets filled. But
Mm-hmm.
it is really choppy. Signals are very choppy as well. The system is not seeing um,
So
good
hesitation
clarity, I
is,
would say. That's why
it
it's being
also
very
sees
sensitive. Yeah.
hesitation in the market is almost how
Yeah.
you'd sum it up. Like it's starting to kind of flip, but there's just been no
Yeah.
follow through
Because
taking
the
place.
spreads are also, yeah, the spreads are also flipping constantly. So it's keeping up with what is going on with order flows, and tags along based on that. So there isn't a consistent trade
Ha-
right now.
Has it been making trades on ETH at all?
No,
Nobody
it
should be
hasn't
making
been
ETH
doing
trades
any
on.
trades on ETH.
Well, then we're going to
Don't,
use
don't,
that as a way to
Yeah,
talk about ETH then, because now I'm curious. What are you guys seeing on ETH? Amit, I'll bring it back to you here. What are you seeing on ETH? Are you seeing anything? Is it just fully dead? Will it come back to life ever?
it is dead as dodo.
Ooh, 6 feet under. Okay.
Yeah, it's not moving. I mean, you want to see some volatility, some kind of action happening. It's just ETH and all the betas to ETH. They are doing nothing at the moment. It's like the life has been sucked out of them. There's nothing in their ETH. I mean, I used to like to trade ETH, but not anymore. It's again, yeah, change your mind.
Uh,
There's
Benjamin, you
nothing
can
there.
be quick here. We don't need to spend too much time on ETH, most likely. But what is it that, why do you think it's been so depressed of late?
well, there is no narrative, right? There's literally nothing happening on ETH,
Mm-hmm.
at least on the mainnet. There's nothing to look forward to. While you have other layer ones having either some type of a casino or some type of an adoption. Let's say if you take
Mm-hmm.
Chain, there is quite good adoption organically because of the degenerate games that keeps coming up. I just have to keep tapping and I can make money type of narratives that keeps popping up on
No,
my
it makes a
tongue.
lot of sense. I mean,
So
it's
so I mean that has been fantastic, easy adoption. So a lot of population basically sitting there, and there is nothing else to do over here. And the rates are so low, yield rates are so low, pendle rates are low. So there's not much of DeFi interest either. So it's just waiting time
it,
until the
it
Fed flips, I would
the
say.
DeFi interest is pretty glaring. We were just diving into it. I think it was either earlier this week or late last week, looking up in terms of the outflows of TVL on Pendle and the timing and correlation with how the market moved, as you could look at ETH BTC, and they were pretty heavily correlated in terms of a lot of unlocks were taking place, and then ETH was really just lagging behind, and then of course you had Jump and company just absolutely pummel it down lower. Um, yeah, narrative that really does seem like it's lacking over there. But instead of spending too much time on something that's reportedly dead, let's just jump over to Solana then, because as far as when I hear you guys talk, you're always looking at Solana of late. The volatility's there, the volume's there. Amit, what do you see over in Solana? What are the levels you're looking at? What do you think is going to be happening over the next week?
I think on the CVD side, net flow side, Solana is negative. So I see a little bit of a downside before it starts to run up or before it starts retesting any of the trend lines that has been there for a very long time. So uh, from the price perspective, 130s I'm expecting before it does anything else.
You said 130 was the level that you got your eye on
Yep.
when it comes to Solana.
Yep, because there's a
What
lot
would
of
you want to see if it goes into that range? Do you want to see a quick wick down? Do you want to see a slow build up of momentum?
I think it will be a quick wick. It won't be chopping around 130.
Benjamin, are you seeing something similar on your end or something different?
Yeah, I do agree with them because this green block over past 4 weeks has been the same block and the same line, same chart I've had. It's the same thing that we've been discussing when it comes to Solana. First thing was losing 175 was not good, so that got me worried about the entire market as such. And I was hopeful this block will hold, and it did not. We fell down all the way to hundreds, low hundreds, and then bounced back, recovered the 200 daily moving average, and we were almost ready to bounce on top of this block, but then rejected and fell back down. Now, not only have we lose the 200-day level, we're also below this block, and we are just consolidating over here. Now, yeah, so there's a lot of liquidity now building up below 141 area. I think all the way down to 130, there will be a lot of liquidity build up. So this might as well just go down, snipe up that liquidity, and go back for a test to 160. But for Sol to be really out of the woods, we need to flip this block. We flip this block, that would be very good sign for Sol. And then, of course, if we flip 175 this time, then there is nothing that stops it to 250.
So if I could summarize Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana here and kind of wrap it in a little bow, hesitation is really what we have across the board here, but like completely neglecting ETH entirely. If anything, I guess the hesitation is more in terms of Bitcoin and Solana. That's where the bids are sitting in terms of if we're going to see price continue down lower. Those are the bids, and those are the two tokens in which the bids are going to start to be filled, which means that's where all the action activity would be if we start to see it rise up on out of there, take over the 200-day moving average, and things go higher. Is that an accurate summary of what you guys are looking for in terms of if we do see the price start to go to the downside over the next week? That's what we want. Those are the levels to watch and two tokens to watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was looking for more, but I think I think that's a good summary in terms of if anybody just tuning in, that's kind of what we've been talking about. But right now, let's get into a token that is not one of the majors. And I've gotten a couple of questions on my Twitter account in regards to it. And this token is Curve. CRV is the ticker. And the reason I think people are asking about it is that of late, some of these old, stagnant, stale DeFi tokens are starting to change sort of their utility profile in terms of what the token's going to do. I believe Aave inflation rates are getting really low. We saw a compound in the governance action taking place over there in terms of bringing more utility to that token. And then CRV was another token of late that kind of caught my eye. And the reason being is that the annual token supply growth rate will be 6.3%, which I guess is much lower than it was before. In that I believe it was the team's tokens are no more in terms of the distribution taking place over there. So Mitch, trying to buy another house or something is not going to have, new emissions come into his pocket to go ahead and fund those endeavors. But the emission rates are coming down is what really the takeaway here is. Now, what do you guys see on CRV and some of these DeFi tokens? If you guys want to branch outside of CRV, sounds good. But I think the main question here is what's going on with the order books with CRV bids. What do you guys see?
So on CRV side, we have been tracking CRV, and
Mm,
when the market started to trend lower, at that point we thought 30 cents is the area that we'll watch. Once the price starts to track above it, we start getting loads of alerts saying, okay, 30 cents is reached. Now, from my perspective, what I want to see is this here area to be held. So if it doesn't go below 30, then you are looking at considerable upside on CRV side of things. from the order flow perspective.
Do you see it getting over that 200-day moving average anytime soon? I mean, that's a big move. It's currently trading around 30 cents. It looks like the 200-day moving average is sitting there around 46 cents. And I think a lot of the gaps and sells before, in terms of all the drama that was around Mitch, the founder over there, Curve, was near 60 cents. I mean, those are some big moves that would need to take place with Curve. Are you really thinking that's likely or possible?
Again, it'll move. It won't go in one candle. It'll be a slow grind up. It won't straight away go into 60s. It will first try to recover, like looking at peaks and troughs, right? It'll try to get into first 35 and from there see what happens. Because I think up to 35, back to 30, and then we see what happens.
Very nice. And Benjamin, are you seeing something similar, or are you got a different view over there? Sounds like he's speechless looking at that chart, which that might be a good sign or a bad sign. I'm not really sure. But we've been going at this for a little bit, and frankly, this is my first time hosting the show, so I'm running out of topics and questions to ask you guys. I'm not going to lie there. And when we think about things that some of us could do who are listening today, if you're interested in some of the stuff that we do at JLabs Digital, one of those things being autonomous execution software with JAI, I encourage you to reach out on Telegram to Benjamin_BC. If you reach out over there, let him know you're interested. I have a feeling that there might be something favorable that he'd be willing to offer to you guys if you want to reach out. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody for somehow enduring my first attempt here. I'm coming off the bench. I'm more excited for Marconi to come back and take the mic back from me and tell me to go sit down. But if he's listening, we wish you the best. We hope everything's going well with you in the hospital. We look forward to hearing back from you, and everybody who tuned in today, thank you for showing up. Keep asking questions, keep the conversation going. We want to invite you to help us form this show and make it better and better tailored towards you and the things that you guys are looking at. So again, thanks everybody for showing up. Benjamin, Amit, thank you guys for showing up and giving us your insights today. And with that, I want to sign off and have a good week.
Thank you.